Hi, my name is Komal Bandi. I'm a software developer. I build apps and websites. Today I'm going to be talking to you about an authentication process called Json Web Token. Now, when you're installing systems or building systems, you have a front-end systems and a back-end systems. And the front-end system is what usually your users or your customers actually view. And the backend system is where all the data is stored and where all the algorithms are processed. So that's all your backend, and with that also includes your databases. So what happens is that when the front-end system is trying to communicate with the backend system, there's always a security issue. So the JSON Web Token actually passes a token, which is a SHA-256 encrypted token. So once the client, that's the client side, that's your websites or your apps, actually store that token, and every time they request for information, they actually send this token through to the server, and the server authenticates it. And this way, this is one of the simplest ways of security in from backend and front-end technology. So what we're going to do today is basically we're going to install Laravel, and then we're going to install a package called Tymon's Json Web Token, and then I'll show you how to create a token, how to authenticate. First is the person is the person on the database, and then we'll send back a token. So here we go. For starters, we're going to install Laravel. We'll call our folder JWT. This should take around 2 to 3 minutes. I'll get back to you once it's completed. Welcome back. Now we've finished installing Laravel. Now I'm going to go ahead and install Tymon's JWT-Auth. So we are in the JWT folder. And then we're going to go into Composer, require, and then we're going to Tymon JWT Authentication, 0.5.0, we'll just put it as 0. Control S. Alright, and now we'll type in Composer. We'll use Composer. We have to first go into the JWT folder. Okay, now Composer install. Generate optimization. The log file is not up to date with the latest change of Composer. Run. Yep. Composer update. Now this will get Tymon JWT authentication. This should take another 1 or 2 minutes, and I'll be back once this is complete. Great. Now we have completed installation of Tymon's JWT authentication. Now we'll configure it. So for that, we will first go into the config and app.php, and then we'll go into the providers array. So this is the providers array, and here we need to declare the class. We'll do that at the end. Tymon. Okay. providers. And then we go into JWT JWT-Auth. And then JWT-Auth again. All right. We've had a couple of issues in the previous installation, and I've just gone back and had a look at a couple of the manuals and just realized that there were a couple of issues. And I think with the latest Laravel, the JWT authentication, there's been a couple of changes. Now, for this one, we first need to go back to Composer, and instead of 5.0 *, we put it as dev master. And once you're done with that, go back to Putty and then put in Composer update. That should get in the dev master branch into the Tymon dev master version. Once that is done, then we have to go into the JWT generate command, and this is in the vendor. So we go into the folder vendor, Tymon, and go into source, commands, and JWT generate commands. And over here, put in this particular function, public function handle this fire. And after that, you go into the next one, that is the JWT service provider.php. Sorry, we don't do anything over here. This is so it's just these two that we need to work on. And then once you're done with that, we just do from the manual, just copy and paste this. That's it. PHP artisan vendor publish this command, and that should successfully change it from the config to the config jwt.php, that particular folder. It's transferring it. And now we put in PHP artisan JWT generate, and this publishes the secret key. Once that is done, that is your configuration of JWT authentications. Next, we will use next we will authenticate whether the person, when a person is trying to log in with a username and password, the system will check if the person exists in the database, and if the person exists, it will generate a token, and that will be sent back to the client side services. All right, so that's next. Now we're going to configure the database with Laravel, the MySQL database. So for that, we'll go into Laravel folders and go into the env. Over here, we have to set the database connection. Database connection MySQL. Yeah, that's right. DB JWT name. Alright, once we're done with that, that'll set up the database. Next, we're going to go into the migration. That is, if you go down to database and then go to migration. The good thing about Laravel is it already has two files to create a table called users, and these are the columns: ID, name, email, password, and then you have remember token and timestamp. Next, for email, we'll put in as 100, so that's the length of the email column, and we'll also put this as 100 for name. Alright, once we're done that, we now have to start a terminal putty and go into JWT, go into the folder which is not working. Oh, sorry, this is putty, this is PowerShell. Just give me a minute, I'll fire up putty. Yep. Alright, and now we have to go into JWT. Okay, now we have to set up the migration, start the migration, I mean. So for that we will put in PHP artisan migration. Give it a minute. PHP artisan sorry, the command is not migration, it's migrate. Access denied for vagrant localhost using password. Yes. Oh, yes, that's right. 27.0 DB host. Username is now back to putting. Try this again. Using password, yes. Okay. Migration table created successfully in connection. Skip password reset addition password. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Now next we need to, this is basically telling us there's another table called create password reset, and specified key was too long, max character length 767. That's password reset email index. Email, yeah, and that this one we don't need to worry about this at the moment. Okay, now here we are. Now we need to check whether this has been created, and we go to agent. And yes, we do. Select table. Great. Now we have it already created. Now we'll create a column. Sorry, we'll create a table entry using seeding. PHP artisan migrate, sorry, C artisan make seeder. Yeah, that's the one. Create a new seed class. Json user table seeder. Okay, there, user table seeder, and here this is where we're going to create the table entry. So we will start off with table. That's the name of the table. Insert and from create user tables we have name, email, password, name, email, and password. Name, email, let's say john@gmail.com. Password, and then we'll just call it ABC123. New password. Another member token column. Str random 20 created, and since there is a created one, we created and updated. Date. Flower brackets, right? This. Alright. So that's we have created an entry. Now to insert this into the database. token. Oops. Let's try this again. There we go. That has worked. Just to make sure that that's working, we'll do this again. Star. Great. You can see that's all been created right now. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we'll send in an API request to see if that particular user is in the database. If the user is there in the database with the username and with the email and password, then the system will send back a token. Laravel has already created a login controller. So this is already part of the default Laravel, and you just have to go into app, HTTP, and controller auth and login controller. So we're gonna do our in the construct itself, in the constructor. For now, we'll just ignore this to make this work with the JSON Web Token. What we're going to do is we're going to use JWT, not user, use JWT, and then you have auth. No, just JWT control. Alright, and the next one is you use Tymon JWT-Auth exceptions, JWT exceptions. Use HTTP request. Great. Now from the post request, we will first get the emails. Request input password. Input, then now the user go to db table So over here, this is all the code we've written. So 200, as you've seen, response JSON with status code 200 means it's all good, and that'll give us the token number. And the second one is if there is an exception, 500 means server error, and you get back a return saying could not create token. And 401 service denied, user does not exist. Over here, we are just going to modify this code just a bit. The reason why we are modifying the code is because the constructor is usually used to do the authentication, the API authentication. Okay. Constructor. Okay, now we'll go to the API and just see if this is working. Okay, we'll first test this out. And let's say hello. All right. Now just check if this works. Okay. There you go, the API is working. Now we're gonna modify the API to generate the code. Get oh no, it's not function. Auth yeah, auth dash and the controller name is login. Controller at login. So this is basically telling it go into the controller called login controller and use the method called login. Now to see if this works, go into login controller. Okay, cool. Control S. This should probably come back with an error. Sweet. Okay, we have something called DB that needs to be first taken care of. So use illuminate support facets /db. Okay, we've done that. Now we've got this. Okay. We'll go back to this. Not this. We need to use a table CD. Email and password john@gmail.com. So over here, we'll just put an email john@gmail.com, and let's see if this works. Okay, method front user does not exist. I think I know what's going on here. Come here, front user. It's not front user, it's from user. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is do this again. Voila, we now have a token. Now we've got this. Now what we need to do is basically show that this is authenticated. Alright. Alright, now we will copy the token. Control C. Go back over here and then we'll create a method. Let's see. 10. And here we will type in $. In case it is fine, Control P, and we'll get user. And we'll put this to 100. This already takes this particular call takes care of retrieving the token from the header and then validating it. Okay. Now, and then we're going to start the REST client. over here, wait, before we go ahead, just copy this, see, Control V, and then we'll say auth token token, authenticate token. Brilliant. Now, got this. We'll go to the. You could do a curl. Actually, I'll show you how to do it via the curl program. So we're going to start a putty here. So now we will type in curl header, and then for this particular one, we will type. It is bearer, and then authorize bearer your token. That's gonna be here. That's your token. Yeah. And then the website, we'll actually just copy this, Control C, and it's auth token, AUTH token. Okay, that's the answer. The token can be passed from the request. Just a minute. Okay, the problem, there's a spelling mistake, so let's do this again. That's okay. And authorization. So this works. Yeah, there you go. It's perfect. It's giving us all the data that we require. There you go. That's done. So that is how do you create a token and how you authenticate a token.